Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about, certainly I'm seeing a lot more of this, as retirement age gets ever further away. It was 60, and then went 65, and then it was 67, and then 68, and it's about to hit 70 years old very soon. So there are two reasons for this that Western governments tell us, that they can't afford to pay for all those pensions for all those retiring people if they retire earlier. And so by working on to 67, 68, or ultimately I think 70, 71, they're looking at 72 is actually being talked about, then that will sort of save the social security system, a bit like COVID saved the health system, or was that something else? And hard to tell the propaganda from the lies these days. This means that there's a lot of people who are too old to do the work that they were doing, and are no longer wanted in their what might have been their profession or trade or whatever the case may be, and they're having to do, because they can't get the pension, they're having to do work on as cleaners, or some of them are getting the lowest paid, shittiest jobs in retail, say in things like hardware stores and gardening type stores, that sort of thing. And so these people are out in the workforce doing these low paid shitty jobs, and I'm seeing sort of more often now. For example, there was a bunch of straight white men who were old men, some of them in not very good shape. I don't know how they could be, why they weren't getting a pension. But anyway, they're out cleaning the train. So a train comes in, and before it does the turnaround to go back round the loop, it gets cleaned. And so a crew of people come in and pick up the trash and give the thing a wipe down and whatnot. So all these old guys are there, and some of them stumbling, and some of them shaking from age, and clearly, I would say quite a number of them really weren't up to it in my view. But nonetheless, their supervisor was a young, or I say young, early 30s, quite brutish Asian woman, with a very thick accent, and couldn't speak English very well. So she hasn't been here very long. And somehow she's got the job of supervising all these old straight white men. And she spoke like a fucking prison guard. You do what I say, you do, you go do, you do, don't you do, and this sort of stuff. And it was painful to watch the way she was talking to them, barking out these orders and making threats, and I thought being rather cruel. I couldn't imagine treating somebody that way, and unless they transgressed, horribly. But otherwise, it's even then, So just listening to this, and she's clearly getting off on it, and there was no supervisor supervising her. Now, if I'd been her supervisor, she'd have got one warning, and then that's it. You're not suited for this sort of work. But there was no supervision of her, and where she got the idea that she could treat people that way and talk to them that way is quite beyond me. Her command of English was poor, so she's clearly insecure about that. She was insecure as well that I think she wasn't really qualified to be doing it, but was really getting off an idea of all these straight white males, who've as she would have been grown up, were masters of the world, and now she's the one in charge, and she can make them fucking suffer, and so clearly getting off on it. And so I'm watching this quietly, and maybe I should have made a complaint and pointed it out. People like that shouldn't be in any sort of supervisory role, let alone that. But she was really getting stuck in. Now, these weren't high quality workers in the sense of young and fit and agile. These were people that were probably operating beyond their capacity given their age, and some of them looked like they were carrying infirmities of one sort or another. But on the other side, I tried to look and say, well, maybe she's just taking her job seriously, that they've got to, clean the train in a certain amount of time. So she's really having to push them hard to get the job done. So maybe is that. And so I tried to think outside of the square, as it were. But that's still no excuse for the way she was treating these men. Now, I don't know what it was, but these men seemed quite cowed, almost like whipped animals, and they were sort of running around, trying to do their best, seemingly terrified of her and what she might do or say about them or something. And I thought, well, what is it? Are they scared of getting the sack, getting fired, or what is it exactly? Does she have that sort of authority to do that? If I was a supervisor, I'm not sure I'd take any of her recommendations as to who should or shouldn't get fired or stay on the job. So that's it. But in other places, well, I'm seeing those sort of things more and more. But in other places, there was somebody who's come from the subcontinent and whose command of English again is very very poor, and really thick accents you have to listen to. But they're bossing some people around in like a retail store sort of setting, and it's why for you not do what I say? I say why for you not do? You do as I say. And I know it sounds funny in one way, but if you sort of were there to see the sort of hostility and the angry and brutish insecurity manifesting as sheer sort of aggravation on steroids, and again you'd say, well, why would you put a person like that in charge of anything? And other things. I want everybody over this side. I want everybody here right now. I want everybody here, and things like that, as if their children, sort of ordering children in the school playground around the place, and it's they've got this weird sort of demanding of respect that they would apply to, say, in the subcontinent, people of the very lowest breeding and the lowest caste, and so they think now they're the masters and they can tell other people what to do, and it's a bonus that these people are white. So really there needs to be I think some careful thought about who these supervisors are and who these managers are, and whether, and I'm sort of seeing enough of it where I'm starting to say to myself, is this an organized program? Is this are they intending to humiliate old white people? Maybe to stress them out so they'll go to an early grave and all that pension money will be saved. I mean, well, what's the purpose here? Nobody would want to treat other people that way. If I had a bunch of non-white people sort of working, I wouldn't. Again, you just wouldn't do it. Maybe willful laziness or sort of subterfuge. But even then, why would you treat people that way? And I can't figure it now. I don't know whether anyone's seen The Planet of the Apes. This is a 1960s thing. In the late 1960s, I think it was 67, 68, somewhere around there. The first Planet of the Apes movie was produced, which, interestingly, bit of historical trivia here, was the very first video ever put on, I think it was VHS. So the very first video ever released when video machines just started to appear. Now, the movie, it was from a novel by Pierre Boulet, but the novel was, or the general story was that the world had a nuclear Armageddon, and the human race had been more or less wiped out, or certainly all the systems, infrastructure, and the humans that were left were these sort of low IQ animalistic creatures with no, they couldn't talk or had lost the power of reason and things like that. So, and what had happened is into that void where humans once were, apes and gorillas had now taken over. So they were running around riding horses and talking and firing guns and so on. So they developed a sort of into maybe the sort of technology of the I don't know, the mid 1800s, I suppose. They didn't have trains or cars, but they had rifles and the like, and rode horses. But anyway, the apes were in charge, and they liked to cage the humans and sort of whip them around and engage in brutish and humiliating sort of work on them. Engage in lobotomies and things like that. So it was quite determined to as I saw it, humiliate the humans, and the mere idea that apes and gorillas were in charge was in itself an act of humiliation. So just sort of looking at that movie, is that really sort of a reality that we're seeing starting to play out in the West now, where people are being imported, third world peasants are being imported for the sole purpose of making our streets unsafe. Albanian gangsters rule the streets, and shops are looted by black mobs, and there's angry lesbian teachers are running riot in the school education system, and on it goes. Is all this obviously to destroy Western society, but is a big part of it. The purpose is to purposefully, willfully, and with premeditation humiliate white people as part of some twisted vengeance. Now, the people that are signing off on this, we have to remember, are with some exception, but in main part, male, straight, and white, and yet they're signing off on it. And so there must be a degree of relish, even at the higher levels, that this sort of thing will be going on. And similarly, that the energy price is going up to such an insane degree, means a lot of white people will be suffering horribly as a consequence. Again, it's straight white men that are signing off on this cruelty to other white people. And I think we've all had enough, and it has to come to a stop. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.